Welcome. We're going to convene the Brattleboro Select Board special meeting of Tuesday, November 12th. It is 6:30, which is a little bit later than usual because we were at a town budget open house from 4 to 6 p.m. John, was this meeting properly warned?
Yes, Daniel, it was.
Wonderful. We'll begin with Chair's remarks. My remarks are, we just had a town budget open house at the library from 4 to 6 p.m. Members of the community who are interested in how much they pay in taxes and also what level of service is offered by the town really need to engage with us about our budget this year. We need to know what you want, whether you're willing to pay more or whether you need fewer services in your life. And so if you do not engage with us, we will make decisions in a vacuum. So I thank you for coming tonight, but I also encourage you to continue to engage with the process, to look at the budget on the town website, to ask us questions. We're all very easy to access. The town manager is easy to access too. We will have more meetings about the budget in the coming weeks and months, but engagement is critical to us having a budget that works for this whole community. So I would love for folks to do that. And with that, I will end my remarks. And we'll move on to manager's comments.
Thank you, Daniel. Last week, we had 2 major fires in town, and I wanted to express our extreme gratitude to the very hardworking Brattleboro firefighters who kept these fires contained and from causing more serious damage in the town. I also want to shout out to the 5 mutual aid departments, Department of Public Works, Brattleboro Police, Vermont State Police, and Green Mountain Power employees that assisted us on Canal Street at the Sportsman's Fire, as well as the 18 mutual aid fire departments, 18 departments out on Melchin Road. Department of Public Works, Vermont Forestry, Green Mountain Power, and all of the neighbors on Melchin Road and Ackley Road that provided food and equipment. It's amazing to see how people come together and step up in the face of these types of serious threats in our community. I was hearing about the fire jumping the fire lines up there. It was very difficult work, and really want to say thank you to everyone who helped contain that, as well as the Sportsman's Fire. On a related note, the Department of Forests, Parks, and Recreation has extended its ban on burn permits for Windham County through November 18th unless conditions change and that order is revoked. The Planning Department is hosting a second public forum regarding the Canal Street Corridor Plan. So if you're interested in Canal Street and what the future might bring to that part of town, I advise you to attend this public forum on Thursday, November 14th from 6 to 8 p.m. here in the Select Board meeting room at 230 Main Street. And there will also be a Zoom option. The plan is to make enhancements to Canal Street, going from the Hinsdale Bridge to Exit 1. For more information, including an overview of the first public forum on Canal Street, please visit brattleboro.gov/projects. Finally, as approved at the Select Board's last meeting, the town will be hosting a special representative town meeting on Thursday, December 12th at 6 p.m. at the gym at Academy School. RTM voters will be discussing whether to call back the amendment to Chapter 13, Article 9 regarding acceptable community conduct that the board adopted on September 17th. For more background information on the ordinance change, please visit the website at brattleboro.gov/pending ordinances. I will also be try to get some of the video footage from the Select Board's previous meetings where you discussed the ordinance at length up on that website. People can link through and see what public conversations have already occurred on the topic. So that's all I had tonight.
Thanks, John. Other board members with comments or committee reports? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to public participation. I guess in my remarks, I didn't give my usual spiel about how to engage in this meeting, but I'll give it now if you don't mind. So public participation at this point in the meeting is for anything that's not on tonight's agenda. We always have public participation on each of the items as well. If you wish to speak, all you need to do is raise your hand and then I will recognize you. And you are given up to 3 minutes to speak on, whatever topics at hand at the time. Right now, it would be something that's not on tonight's agenda. We will engage in a discourse that is civil. We'll listen to each other. We'll be respectful, even if we disagree. And so with that, I will open it up for comment on something that is not on tonight's agenda. I see a hand over there. I think Ms. O'Connor.
Hello, I'm Kate O'Connor, Brattleboro, and I just want, following up on what Daniel was talking about, public participation in the budget, I just want people to know that when you get on the town website, the budget is not current as of November 5th because the solid waste line item is not included in the base budget. So what they're looking at, including that, is either going to be a 19.7% tax increase or a 22% tax increase. And I'm hoping that maybe after the next meeting, it could be there. I just want the public to understand what budget they're looking at.
Yep, fair. Patrick, we have Helena from BCTV looking to participate on Zoom.
Referring to Helena? Yeah, would you like to hear from her?
I would, because I wonder what she has to say. Hello. Oh, we can't hear you. Maybe that's what she came to tell us.
You can't hear us?
No, we don't have any sound from you, so maybe we can come back to you. Or maybe you could let one of your BCTV colleagues know what's up. No? Okay. I'm not sure if it was BCTV business or board-related business. I think they're working on it. All right. Very good. Mr. DeGray.
A couple of things. Thank you, Dick DeGray, District 8. I'm starting to remember that. A couple of things about the budget process. One is talking with a few people and hoping that you consider a hiring freeze. Not sure that will bring down the budget. And the other thing, if you could, at the December 19th meeting, there's $20,000 in the budget for the Arts Committee. Everybody else has to pretty much sing for their supper, whether you go through the Human Service budget, DBA has to come and present. I don't know what happens with that $20,000. I don't know what projects are being done. And I know two of you, I believe, were here when you allowed some of that money to be used for administrative costs. I think if you shake your head enough, you might remember that.
Yeah.
Was with Jessica Geller was here.
Yeah.
And she made that
I'll
recommendation.
look back into my...
And I would just like to have some accounting of that money, whether they can come and present or you can make that. And the last thing, I thanked Mary and Mike Casey last week for their assistance, but I'd also like to thank the Public Works Department and the Park and Recreation Department. They've also been instrumental in helping me out this year. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak on something that is not on tonight's agenda?
Me, but it's technically related. I think people on Zoom can't hear the room might be what she was saying.
Okay, thank you. And Helena is back. Let's hear from Helena. And if BCTV could let us know if something needs to change.
I don't think there's anything to do with the broadcast.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm here
Hello.
as a citizen of Brattleboro, Helena Leschuk, but I am the operations manager for Brattleboro Community Television. Here to shamelessly plug our producer awards party tomorrow night, Wednesday night, the 13th. 6:30, come in at 6, have a drink, but ball gets rolling at 6:30. If you've ever been curious about anything that we do at BCTV, this is a perfect opportunity for you to come and say hi to us, chat about what we do, about what the producers do, about how you can utilize our services, utilize our beautiful studio, which is becoming more state of the art every day. Our amazing staff, our amazing team that we have. Please come to the Stone Church tomorrow night. 6 to 8 p.m. You'll be home in time to go to bed for work on Friday, or Thursday. Sorry, this last couple weeks is obviously scrambling everyone's brains. So come and hang out with us and learn more about BCTV. We know we have a lot of friends out there in the community who are curious about us. So come on down. We'd love to meet you and say hi. Everything is technically going amazingly, and I love my whole team. Thank you,
Great.
everyone.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay. Anyone else that would like to speak on something that is not on tonight's agenda? Okay. So then we will move on. Our first order of new business is a parking ordinance amendment. This is a first reading, so that means no action will be taken. It's to talk about the ordinance amendment, and it looks like Sue Fillion is going to come and join us at the special presenter table. And
Yep.
that's all the table said, and I'm going to do.
Okay, good.
You got any more?
Sue can run us through this. This is, I believe, a recommendation from the Traffic Safety Committee. And if
It
Sue,
is.
if you could fill us in on what this
so-
is.
Thank you. Over the summer, Vermont Country Deli came before the Select Board when you were having another parking ordinance discussion and had requested consideration of allowing some parking along Western Avenue, a little section between the eastern leg of William Street and 406 Western Avenue. And at that time, the Select Board asked that the Traffic Safety Committee take a look and discuss that issue. And the Traffic Safety did that at meetings in August and September, and are presenting a recommendation to do, at that point, it was two things. One was to allow parking in that area, and the other was to restrict parking on the northern side of Western Avenue between Brattle Street and Orchard Street. It's not a wide shoulder there, and people were parking there quite frequently over the past couple of months. And when we looked at the ordinance, we actually noticed that that was not a no parking area. So that's that piece is a cleanup. And then in October, there was a request from some of the residents on Larkin Street to restrict parking on Larkin Street. And the Traffic Safety Committee also voted, I'm sorry, I'm missing a piece, also voted at that meeting to recommend no parking on either side of Larkin Street. And then the one area that I forgot as well is to prohibit parking on William Street between the intersections of Western Avenue and Larkin Street. And the Traffic Safety Committee recommends that as well.
Great. Thank you, Sue. So we've got an outline of the changes that are proposed to the parking ordinances. This is a first reading. I think it would be appropriate to hear from the Select Board and then to hear from members of the public about what they think about this. And then we will take that into consideration and probably bring it back for a second reading. So let's start with the Select Board. Elizabeth.
Thank you, Sue. As a member of the Traffic Safety Committee, you may all know that this is a really difficult situation with the deli and the residents and the parking. And it's obviously a viable business. It's very successful. Therein lies the problem. And in conversations at the Traffic Safety Committee, we would hope that there would be a spirit of neighborliness and cooperation to solve this problem. And I understand that the deli has engaged traffic control on the weekends, and I think that will go a long way to, with this changes that Sue has proposed, to be the first step towards a solution for the traffic problems at the Vermont Country Deli.
Great. Thank you, and thanks for the service on the Traffic Safety Committee.
My
8
pleasure.
a.m. on Thursday mornings is a tough gig. Other board members with questions about this proposed ordinance change? Or comments? Franz?
I guess, hi Sue, I guess I would just note that, there's a longer-term discussion of traffic patterns in this, and parking patterns in the same area that we're engaged in. And I think that's a really important discussion to have. And so in a certain sense, this is kind of a temporary solution to an immediate problem, not necessarily the long-term answer to everything that's going on in that stretch of Western Avenue and the other streets coming off it. So I'm very eager to see what comes of that and, what the plans are for addressing the bigger scope of problem too.
Can
Okay.
I just respond to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's correct. We currently have engaged a traffic engineering consultant who's looking at the stretch of road between Exit 2 and Guilford Street. That is primarily about how to improve intersection safety. We're not necessarily trying to solve any parking problems with that. But yes, that work is coming. They were doing some traffic counts, a higher level of traffic counts in October. So we will be seeing some conceptual, plans there and having some public meetings when they're available.
Great, thank you. So in the Traffic Safety Committee meetings where this was discussed, did we have significant kind of comment from neighbors, from the business? Were their voices heard loudly and clearly?
Yes, there was, I would say there was several of the neighbors who spoke. I also had a neighborhood meeting for that other project that we were talking about, where some of the ideas and really wanting to restrict parking on William Street and Larkin Street both came up. So I can't speak for all the neighbors, but there were contributions from the neighbors.
Okay. Great, thank you. And there's been a temporary kind of police order posting. Does that really kind of like mimic what changes are being proposed here in the ordinance?
Does, yes.
And I'd be curious, maybe if folks in the neighborhood have seen any impact from that. I think there's some folks here that could probably speak to that. And so at that point, I think unless the board has any more questions, let's hear from the public.
Richard?
Richard.
Oh, Richard, hello, I didn't see you.
Just a suggestion or a question. Assume that part of the reason that a lot of people show up at this store, that business is so good, that their advertising medium, whatever it is, they're getting the word out. I don't know if it's social media or whatever it is, but to find out if it's possible to put something about parking on their advertising, that's reaching out to the people that are coming there so they know beforehand.
Okay, thank you.
Sue has been engaged with them quite a bit.
Yeah, we've not talked about something like that, but we have been talking about different lots that are where maybe there could be a shared parking arrangement, and they do have some shared parking arrangements that exist right now where employees might park someplace.
Great. Okay, so members of the public who want to comment on this proposed change to the ordinances, if you could raise your hand and I will try my best to recognize you. Frick? Mr. Sprite, I should say.
Frick Sprite, District 9 Rep. In general, I feel like the trend has been towards taking away parking, and I think that's been problematic for a lot of businesses. So I would encourage you guys to follow through on anything that supports the local businesses' need to get their customers in with reasonably safe parking spaces. I've seen a lot of spaces disappear downtown, which has been problematic for my attempts to patronize local businesses. And then with the fire downtown, it's gotten even worse. So I would urge you to creatively increase rather than decreasing parking spaces.
Okay, thank you. Is that Chief Hardy on the Zoom? Or another person?
It's definitely Norma.
I think it's one of the neighbors.
I'm gonna recognize Norma. Oh, come on. I can't see back there.
It's a neighbor.
All right, well, let's hear from Norma.
I want to say that I have noticed a difference.
Hi, Norma. Could you introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah, I'm Norma Willingham, and I live on William Street and am concerned about the safety from the intersection, partly because of cars parked on William Street where there is no shoulder. And so if a car is parked there, basically it becomes a one-lane road. And I have noticed a difference, and I've been really pleased with the difference that I have been noticing. And I do also continue to have a concern in that people will park right underneath no parking signs that are already there. So what kind of enforcement? I didn't realize that the deli was paying for traffic control on the weekends, and I'm pleased to hear that that's happening. That's very encouraging to me. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Norma. Appreciate that. Other members of the public that wish to comment? Yep. If you would just introduce yourself.
Yep. Judy Daly, one of the owners of the Vermont Country Deli. I first want to thank everyone for addressing this situation and appreciate some help in working toward our park room, solving some parking problems. I think that the signs have definitely helped. The customers, for the most part, are being respectful of the no parking signs that have been put up to guide them as to what this new plan will be. And so I just wanted to speak to that I feel like it has been successful, and we are working with some safety officers to help guide people on busier days. So it seems like we're solving some issues, and it would be great to get those parking spaces back that used to be parking spaces. So thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Other members of the public that would like to comment on this proposed ordinance change? Okay. Select board, any further comment? Elizabeth?
I just want to say that I think it's a really great process that the neighbors have come together, and there's a give and take, and there is an improvement, and I'm really happy to see it.
Okay. Great. Well, board members. Okay, so I think we've had our first reading. We've got some feedback. Seems like people are mostly supportive of this. And so we'll bring it back for a second reading and possible adoption. Okay.
Thanks, Sue.
Thanks, Sue. Sue, I don't think I introduced you properly when you came up. Sue Fillion, Planning Director, exiting the stage. All right, next up, we have an item about the Esteyville Gazebo. And I really didn't plan for this meeting, so I don't know who's presenting these items. Look, it's Carol, Recreation and Parks Director.
Yes, Recreation and Parks Director Carol Lalott will be presenting this item to hopefully get just clarification from the board before she goes out to bid on this, because there was a little conversation around this. We just want to make sure we're on the right track.
Great, thanks.
Great. So that's a nice lead in.
I'm going to pay John a little bit out of my salary tonight for the work he's done.
So just coming, back to review some options with the board, whether going out to the site and meeting with architects and, how we move forward with this project. And because it's a renovation, where now it is not ADA accessible, it will need to be ADA accessible. And I thought the best thing to do would be to really show the board, what it might look like if we move forward. So as you know, I have been working with some architects on other projects, and I want to give a shout out to Michael Petrovic's crew.
team that we've been working with at Living Memorial Park. And I talked to them about the challenges that I was having here and asked them if they would be willing to donate some time to just give some visuals to the board. So that's what I'm here for this evening, to share with you some of those visuals. So at the August 20th meeting, we talked about the feedback that I received from the community, and then the board at that time voted to recommend that I move forward with taking the gazebo as it is and bringing it down half level. Half level will give you a 53-foot ADA accessible ramp. So that would be what option 1 would look like. Option 2, if you went with option 2, which would be going right down to the ground level. And we heard some feedback from several different people how that might not be the best option for the site. In that situation, because it would be at ground level, there would only be a need for about a 12-foot ramp. The feedback that I heard from the board at the August 20th meeting was, if we were to have performers, wouldn't that be nice if we had them up a little bit higher? And to have them up a little bit higher and at the same time address the ADA, I thought this might be middle ground, where so therefore the gazebo would be lowered to 2 feet 4 inches, and there would be a wrap around ADA ramp. Which that ramp would be about 33 feet. So I didn't want to go ahead and go with what was originally discussed at the meeting on August 20th, because I think when the day was over, I'm not sure how many people would be 100% happy knowing that we have this beautiful renovated gazebo, and we also have a 53-foot ramp coming off the front of it. So I'd like to recommend to the board that they reconsider their direction that they gave me to consider option number 3, that is giving the wraparound.
Great. Thanks, Carol. And there's some price in here as well. So option 3.
Yeah, for all of them, you're talking about $100 a linear foot. So on that particular one, with the wraparound, it's about a 33 linear feet. So that would be all part of the project when we put it out to bid. But I just felt like I needed further direction to move forward with this project.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, board. Questions, comments for Carol? Richard?
I like option number 3. I like to wrap around, and it seems like a 53-foot ramp was ugly and probably just not really going to be practical.
Okay. Do you like it so much that you'd like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd move to adopt option number 3.
Okay. Cool. Thanks. We might need it. It's a little more fulsome than that in the material, but we'll come back to that maybe. Liz?
I have some questions, Carol. What's wrong with 2? The shorter ramp seems.
Option 2, it would work as well. What I heard I had a community meeting where people would really like to see it ground level. And then there was further discussion at this forum to maybe bump it up a little bit. So that was the direction that I left this meeting with on August 20th.
So you're saying that at the community meeting, people really wanted 2?
At the community meeting, the recommendation, they wanted us to bring it down to ground level. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just feel that the community came out, gave their opinion, and we changed course. And I really like a good reason why we shouldn't go with what the community wanted, which would be option 2.
Okay. Burns, is your hand raised?
It is, yes. Thank you, Daniel. So in response to your query, which is certainly well-founded, the discussion was a little bit more complex than just, oh, we want it on the ground level. There was, at the community meeting, there was a lot of back and forth. There was a show of hands. I would say there wasn't really a vote. And it was clear that the sentiment was shifting with different people's comments, et cetera. So, to me, it was some guidance, but not a hard and fast, we have to do it this way, vote on the matter at this community meeting. Plus, after that, at additional meetings of the people in the neighborhood, it became clear that people just didn't want it to be inaccessible, and that really people weren't against it being a foot or two off the ground, and in fact that there were some advantages to that in terms of musical performances, which is what I think Carol was alluding to. But quite a number of people later said, well, yeah, we wanted it low, but it doesn't have to be exactly on the ground. It could be a little bit low. But the real issue that they were trying to get at was the accessibility. And I think, well, all three of these plans deal with accessibility in a good way. Personally, I feel strongly that the 53-foot ramp would interfere materially with other uses of that space, especially the kids playing soccer and stuff like that. I think that would have a deleterious effect on the use of the park to have that on the ramp. I think either one of the other two approaches could work, there's some advantages to having it up a little bit in terms of musical performance. Certainly the ramp would be smaller the lower it is to the ground, although even the ground level is not exactly on the ground. If it were, there'd be no ramp at all. So, we're talking about gradations here, I think, more than this way or this way. And I think either of those two approaches would be acceptable. I probably favor the wraparound approach, but either one could work.
Okay, thank you. Peter?
Sure. But just to swing back, I think we're having this conversation again because we kind of didn't listen to what the overarching feel of the first meeting was. So I want to be sensitive to the fact that we do that now. So you're saying the 12-foot ramp gets us to the original feeling of where we wanted to be? Is that the one that's lower?
Yeah, and in response to what Franz said, no, we did not take a hand vote, but we went by how many would like to see it as is, who would like to see it partial the way down, who would like to see it on the ground. At the time, it seemed that the majority of the people in attendance would like to see it at ground level. And with me recommending the third one here, I was trying to do a balance in between. I was trying to walk down the middle of the road and find a delicate balance. I am comfortable with option 2 or option 3, but I had to put one on the table for you to discuss, and that's where I came.
Okay, thanks, Carol. I'm going to speak for a second, if you don't mind.
Please.
I have spoken with a few people that live in this neighborhood and participated in some of the community engagement that you guys did. Thank you for doing that. And I heard from them actually surprising levels of dissatisfaction. I remember the August 20th meeting because it was brutally long. And I think at the point where we were discussing this agenda item, things were a little crazy. At one point, a bat flew in the room, and we all had a very exciting time with that. And the conditions of the meeting at that time, I don't know, were maybe not conducive to great decision making. And so, this is actually a kind of nice opportunity to revisit. I know that there are members of the public who are interested in this project in the meeting on Zoom and maybe here in the room. And so I think at this point, let's hear from them and, take into consideration what they have to say and make a decision tonight. So with that being said, I'm going to recognize Joe next. Hi, Joe.
Hi.
You can
Can you
introduce yourself.
hear me?
We can. A little quiet, maybe.
Yeah, I was present at the July meeting and
Joe, would you mind introducing yourself for the record?
oh, sure. My name's Joe Deary. I live on Pleasant Street directly across from the Esteyville Common. Yeah, I'm perplexed to hear that there wasn't a vote. I'm pretty sure we all took a vote. And that the majority of community residents did raise their hands, and there was the overwhelming, group desire to see it lowered to the ground. And we were all very surprised when we read the article in the Commons, that sort of community feedback was ignored. So I do want to say that just today, talking to my neighbors on a Google group that we have, everybody's priority really is to preserve the amount of green open space that we have in the park. Because the Parks Department was pushing or was suggesting option 3 with the kind of wraparound ramp, that was acceptable. It still sounds like a 33-foot ramp is quite large, and that the drawing didn't exactly show how that would wrap around. But yeah, I just want to just jump in and say, I was there. We took a vote. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. Other members of the public who wish to speak on this matter? Mr. Sprite.
Sprite, District 9. As she was describing the different options during the second one, I thought, why not do a wraparound? And then, as if she was reading my mind, I thought that was a brilliant idea for creative solution to not make it so obviously an anachronistic appendage onto the structure, and it would equally apply to any height until you ran out of round to wrap. I want to commend the Cheryl for coming up with that.
Thank you. Let's go to Rebecca next on Zoom. And Rebecca, if you could just introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm also a neighbor. I live on Maple Street and walk through and around that park at least twice a day with my dog.
Would you mind introducing yourself for the record, please?
I'm sorry, Rebecca Reuter, a resident of Maple Street.
Thank you.
I was also at the first meeting in July, and I'm not sure why my dog's deciding to bark right now. He's usually pretty quiet. I was very pleased to see the wraparound suggestion in the emails that came around today with the different designs. Although the first time we got the email, we didn't see the actual visual of the wraparound. That idea seems to fit a lot of concerns and to leave the green space available as much as possible. I think that the spirit of wanting the gazebo to be on the ground level was for accessibility, and also the slight raise above the ground level makes a lot of sense, both for maintenance and for setting aside a sort of a communal boundary for, you're in the gazebo versus you're just running through the gazebo or whatever. So for use, I think it makes a lot of sense. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Other members of the public who wish to speak on this? Okay, bring it back to the board. Liz?
So I was, pretty surprised to hear that emails after our August vote, that the wishes of the public meeting were not adhered to. And so my first choice would be to do what the July meeting wanted, the majority of what the July meeting wanted. But tonight I'm hearing that people are okay with option 3. So if that's the will of the public and the recommendation of the town, then I'm good.
Okay, thank you. We do have a motion on the floor, which I think was essentially to choose option 3, right, Richard? That was your intention?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts on that motion? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just, it's gonna seem maybe a little frivolous, but probably just gonna opt to abstain from this because I don't have a clear picture as to, I've got like sort of a 50-50 kind of too close to call.
Okay.
That's not too soon.
Sorry. Well, maybe more will be revealed. We have a hand here. Let's recognize this person on Zoom. I think their name is Stacey. Yeah. Stacey, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself. Hello.
Okay. Yeah. Just a quick note. My name is
Do you mind
Stacey.
introducing
I live
yourself?
on Ginkgo Lane.
Thank you.
Long story short, I was on Zoom for that meeting as well. And I think the part that people are confused about is that there was someone from the Historical Society that was saying that the height of the gazebo was really unique because of a history of it. And they were trying to preserve that memory of the like picnics and storing stuff underneath it. So long story short, I'm saying maybe because we care about accessibility in this community and we care about green space, love all those things, maybe we could include a plaque or like consult the Historical Society on like documenting it before we change it. That maybe that will solve most of the problems. I don't know.
Okay, thanks. All right, board, continued deliberation on Richard's motion, which was option 3.
For what it's worth, at Daniel's suggestion, I did send out an email to the list of, there was actually more than one meeting at the gazebo. There was one that predated Carol's meeting where about, I think it was 17 people showed up. And so I maintained a list of contact for those people. And so Daniel thought maybe it would be good to let the neighborhood know that this meeting was happening here tonight. So I sent out an email to let people know that we were doing this. And several people, it's, I don't know what it's representative of, but I've had several emails back saying, thank you for letting us know. And that those who chose to respond, like the up off the ground a little bit solution, it's only 3 or 4 people, but I think there's a diversity of opinion. I don't think it's a slam dunk that the neighborhood all wanted this one thing. And as I said, I could go with either one of these designs, but I do prefer just a little bit of elevation for the purposes of having musical events there, which has historically been an important part of that edifice in our town.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment? Oh, Tom, we're merging board and public, and that's fine. We need some guidance.
I thought of a question that might be useful. Tom Opakowski. I'm wondering if there's a difference between option 2 and 3 as far as bringing chairs, table, equipment off and on the gazebo. Good point. Because with one of them, it's longer and there's a turn, and you may have to navigate over railings and whatnot. And the width
maybe
of
a
the
follow-on question from that. The ramp is not the only point of entry onto the gazebo, or it is?
It would be the only point of entry.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, stairs. That's interesting.
Why wouldn't we have stairs as well? I mean, couldn't that be part of the design?
We could. I think that would be adding cost to it, if you're having, more than.
So
An interesting break.
option 2 is kind of simpler in that regard.
Correct.
Okay.
But in option 2, the ramp also would be the only point of access?
Correct.
But it's a direct shot.
Tiny little
Direct
ramp.
shot. Yeah, it's a 12-foot ramp.
Could we maybe see the rendering of option 2 on the screen, please?
Option 2 or 3?
2, please.
And that's what it looks like in the autumn. I wonder what it looks like in the spring.
Is that your truck, Franz? Okay. Uh-huh.
Oh, that's a nice option there.
You know, I don't mind it.
I like it.
And then, so could you show us option 3 just so people know? And maybe do zoom in like you just did. Next measure. Well, that's option
That's
1.
option
We're not doing option 1.
We don't like that.
No. Harold only showed us that option, so we know what we're not doing.
So we could boo with this.
First one.
Okay. That's 33 foot?
That's what they tell me.
Yeah.
I was actually gonna ask about that.
You want to come to the microphone so people can hear you? And could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Christina.
Hi, Christina.
How many feet does that ramp stick out? The entire thing is 33 feet, ramp, right?
The entire thing is 33. I do not have the breakdown as to what that is. I don't have that answer this evening.
Eyeballing it, I'd say it's about 15 feet that sticks out from the edge of the.
I would say roughly, yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Sprague. That's fun conversation.
Rich Sprague, District 9. I would like to backtrack a little. Upon seeing the blow up of it, it's not truly a wraparound. It's a perpendicular to the entrance thing. A true wraparound thing that could even be landscaped into there, I think would be a fantastic option. And I would say that not having stairs is a little disappointing and inconsistent with if there was a landing coming out and then a set of stairs with a ramp truly wrapping around, I think that might be very nice. I would point out that there's one season of the year where it might get used, but a ramp would be hazardous. And stairs would be a lot safer for the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
Also, given that there's soccer played in there, has there been any thought to putting a little bit of fence around so that kids aren't running onto the street to chase a ball? I don't know how often that happens.
That's how they learn ball control. They don't run into the street. I've spent 6 years doing
Darwin, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so what? Interesting conversation. We got a motion on the floor for option 3. Elizabeth has her hand raised. What will she say?
I'm for option 2.
Oh,
I think it's simpler and more in line with the public lawns. And so I'm changing to option 2.
Okay. Sounds like Elizabeth is inclined to option 2. The motion is for option 3 right now. You want to take a vote on that motion, or what do you want to make some kind of amendment? Okay, maybe we'll take a little vote. All right, so Richard, you made a motion earlier to revisit the layout options of the Fuller Park Esteyville Gazebo and approve the project to go out to bid in accordance with option 3 of the renderings as presented. Any final discussion on that? And can somebody remind me that if this vote fails, we do get the option to then pick up another?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. No further discussion?
I just have a question. The idea about a plaque. Do we have to, if we wanted to do that?
I think if we wanted to do a plaque, I'd need to have 3 people saying, I want to do a plaque. Oh. And that would be additional cost and design and all that kind of thing. Hearing nothing about that, I don't think we did a plaque. It was a nice idea, but yeah. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Any other discussion on Richard's motion? Okay. So all those in favor of Richard's motion to go with option 3, please raise your hand and say aye. That is 2 in favor. All those opposed, please raise your hand and say nay. Oh, good heavens. Don't make me do this. That's 2 opposed.
I've already made my statement.
Now, someone can dig out Robert's rules, please. What happened when it's a tie vote?
The motion fails.
The motion did fail. It most certainly did. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Great. Are there any other motions to be presented? Elizabeth.
I move to accept option 2 of the gazebo plan access.
Okay. Liz has made a motion to accept option 2 for this gazebo. Any final discussion on that? Okay. Seeing none. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Whoa. I need to see it and hear it. Okay. Wow. This is like very surprising in Selectboard land. Okay. So 2 in favor. All those opposed to option 2 say nay and raise their hand. Nay. Okay. 1 opposed and 2 abstentions. Holy hell. Right.
What is your
Are we going for option 1?
No.
No. Both Peter and Franz abstain for mysterious secret reasons.
Mine is far from mysterious.
Yes, no, you said that you weren't sure what the public wanted, I think.
Right. I'm saying I don't think we have a clear path as to what they want.
Yeah.
I would be happy to have those conversations as to what that area of town would like to have. I'm not clear on that. I'm going by a lot of conjecture and hearsay, and I'm just not comfortable casting that vote. So
fair enough.
Wheelchair.
Thank you for explaining it.
Wheelchair.
Would you mind raising your hand to be recognized, please? Caitlin.
Thank you. I don't, there's a lot of, I mean, first of all, saying kids running in the street.
Could I talk to me, please?
When kids are, if you say kids running in the street is Darwin, you should not be representing a district.
Let's
That's
talk
just-
about
that's
what we're
fine.
discussing here.
But you're talking about the ramp. The point, I don't think her point was about a plaque. Her point was that it seemed like in the past, the discussion about height was due to historical, something interesting to people that's historical. This question is about accessibility. So first of all, you should be having people in the room who are in wheelchairs. Those are the people. It's fine if Darwin representative here says that.
Please don't speak about other people in the room.
I am speaking about him because he said it's inconvenient for the rest of us during the winter to have a ramp as the only option to get up. This ramp is so that people in wheelchairs can get up to the gazebo. That's the actual point of this. That's what accessibility means. The conversation is not about the comfort of able-bodied people in the room. So that's all. It just seems like I have no opinion on this gazebo, but it seems like accessibility is the core thing. Y'all have been talking about a bunch of other stuff. This is an accessibility conversation.
Absolutely.
With disability justice and disabled people.
Thank you. All right.
Do we need to say that all 3 options are accessible for people in wheelchairs?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
from your conversation, I see that.
Understood. Thank you. Carol, I just want to check in about this. So right now we've not made a decision. So that means this project is on hold.
Order. I think we have made a decision.
We've decided to not go ahead with option 2 and 3.
No, we took a vote of Liz's motion to adopt option 2, and the vote was 2-1 with 2 abstentions.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
I mean,
I'm not used to us having so many abstentions.
Yeah, no, it was an unusual vote for us, but I think it has that was a vote.
Yeah. Okay.
Does it carry?
I don't know.
Two votes.
Jesus, this is like my Selectboard chair nightmare. My understanding is we kind of my understanding is we always kind of need 3 votes to do something, right? The quorum present here is 5 people, and we need a majority of them.
To abstain.
Yeah.
Does that pull those people out of convention?
You know, I got to be honest with you. I don't know. This is where I'd love to have Bob Fisher sitting on my shoulder.
No, it's quite clear that that's a valid vote and that the majority rules. There's no question about that under Robert's Rules of Order.
Why
don't you say point of order, and I'll say, hey, Frick, what do you want to say?
Point of order.
Yes.
Not sure.
Come to the microphone, please.
From a technical aspect, I would have to agree with Franz. But from a practical aspect, I would urge you guys, since there doesn't seem to be anything close to unanimity about what makes the most sense, that Mr. Fish has, Mr. Case has really articulated what seems kind of like a majority position in the abstentions, which is sympathetic with your concerns. And that is that you deliberate further and come back to this and come up with something that has more enthusiasm behind it, which includes a ramp, perhaps some stairs, a height that would qualify for, good use for musicians. And I mean, is there a rush to do it at this meeting? Or would the majority on this board like to think about it further? And that could be a motion that could be provided to the board.
Great. Thanks, Bert. Harold, what are your thoughts on delay?
It's the board's pleasure.
Yeah.
It's not mine.
Yeah.
So I will do what the board wishes. If the board wants me to meet with the community again, I will meet with the community again. The difficulty here this time, we probably wouldn't meet at the site. We probably would meet at an indoor location to get there. And I would pull up these three options. What I'm looking for is a direction to go in, because there seems to be so many different opinions. And it really doesn't come back down to what I want, because it doesn't matter what I want.
Yeah.
I always have said that it's not what Carol Watt's looking for. It's what the community is looking for. And that's why we held the meetings that we had.
Let's let Carol finish and then.
Yeah, I felt pretty comfortable coming out of the community meeting that the community meeting, those that lived in that neighborhood really wanted to see something at the ground level. When we came to this forum, that seemed to change for some valid reasons, especially when it started to come for performances. And I'm not sure that may not have been fully discussed at our community meeting. But some valid points came out at this meeting. So we have one chance to do this right. And I think that's where what we come up with. Can we wait? We can wait. I just really, because there's been a lot of discussion around this. That's why I felt it was important to come back to the board, because I knew a 53-foot ramp was what you were looking for, and it wasn't what I was looking for, and I don't think it's what the community is looking for. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah,
and Richard.
I want to be sensitive that you probably don't have the time to throw together another meeting, figure out a doodle poll as to when everybody can meet, what time they can meet, and then sit down and meet for another hour to all vote on it. I mean, I am happy if Franz wants to send out another email saying, look, this is going to come up one more time. The board needs, I shouldn't include the board, I should just include myself, and just say, like, this is the option that we'd like, and this is the option we would like you to vote on. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not clear right now. I'm just like 50-50. So I don't want to, and what got us here today was because we, as Daniel pointed out, we made the decision at the end of a long night. And I remember even saying that night that, oh, one person doesn't get to make this decision. That's what it felt like. That's what it still feels like. And I don't want to do it again. And I'm also going to say, I understand that this may be a very important issue to the people in that part of town. But it feels really silly that we are still discussing it right now.
Okay. Thank you.
I would be,
yeah.
I would be happy to, if Franz is willing to share his email list, and I would love to take his email list and add it to those that signed in that evening. And I would be happy to send something out to say it's going to be on the next meeting that it's going to be on. And if that is the direction that she would like to give me, but to me, it would make sense if it came from the department.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Great. Thanks, Carol. Richard?
Starting to get silly, I agree with you. And I have no
You said silly.
Huh?
You said silly.
silly. Isn't it?
I heard chilly. I'm sorry.
You said silly?
Yep. All right.
I said,
I did.
I agree, but I have no stake in either, you know, I could go with either choice, okay? So I would rather let us resolve this now. If there's any way we could take another vote, because I don't want to see Carol put any more time into this. And I think there isn't that much difference between the two of them, and I'd be happy to change my vote if we can just move ahead on it.
Yeah, I hear you, and I think what we're seeing with this issue is there is not clear direction, and I think in absence of clear direction, we should go back and we should reconsult with the neighborhood and hopefully get some clear direction. And then if this board wants to take that clear direction and then move forward with that, great. If this board, a majority of this board chooses to do something other than that, so be it. But let's get that clear direction. I must, confess that, like, as the person chairing the August 20th meeting, like, by the time we got to that agenda item, I sort of wished we weren't talking about it, but I was one of the people that was like, we need to get on with this because we had so many other things on our agenda, and I'm trying to, like, protect time for all these other things as well. So that's on me. I didn't think it would kind of go like this tonight either. It was pretty surprising, I gotta say. But I think it's interesting, and I think it's indicative of the lack of clarity about the vision for this. And I think you just said you get one chance to do this, right? So let's do it right. So let's have a little bit more, consultation with the public and bring it back for a future meeting.
And for me, a simple email response with clear direction is all I need.
And the public are not taking a vote. It will still be on the board to, like, actually make the vote in public, right? But give us some direction that is helpful.
And I apologize.
There's no apology
No,
needed.
no needed.
I'm all good.
Oh, no, I don't like to create busy work.
Yeah. I don't think this is busy work. I think this is getting clarity about what the community wants. Mr. DeGray, do you want to speak about something that will help us here?
Well, I know one thing, I'm never gonna get this time back.
Excuse me?
I'm never gonna get this time back that we just wasted.
I misheard you.
Especially after what you just said, considering that you took a vote on option 2. And then we're saying you have a select board member that says, I can go either way, and he's willing to change his mind. And all I have to do is make a motion to reconsider. And then you can take the vote and put this issue to bed. You had 2 residents that said they were okay with option 3. You have a board member that abstains after hearing from 2 of the people that had a conversation with the group. Certainly.
Would you like me to explain why I'm saying we want to go back to the community?
I do understand that.
Yeah.
I do understand it. But if that was in fact the case, then after option 3 failed, then maybe you should have made your statement to say, let's bring it back, have another meeting, and get more clarity, because we don't have, it wasn't clear that at least 3 of you weren't going to do it.
I think being thoughtful sometimes requires taking a minute to, like, process what's happening. And so not having the answer like that right away doesn't mean that, it's the wrong answer.
Oh, sure. I'm not disagreeing with you, the whole process you just went through. And then, I mean, getting the gazebo done would be great, but it's been in that condition that it's been in for the last 20 years. So tabling this and I think you got to make a motion to table to a date specific. So you might want to consider that motion. Because I think that's part of what you have to do if it's going to come back to you. So whatever that is, whether it's January, February.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Browns.
Thank you, Daniel. From a parliamentary perspective,
my favorite perspective.
I know how much you love Robert's rules. The way to, I think, I guess I'll be a little bit of a stickler here and say we took a vote. It's a valid vote. And if we want to undo that vote, then the next step to take would be for someone who voted in favor to make a motion to reconsider. Then we could vote to reconsider, and then we could table the matter until another meeting. But if you want to undo that vote, that's the way to do it.
Cool.
I mean, those are our rules.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
But only someone who voted in favor.
I know, that's what I'm hearing, yeah.
Can
Yeah.
make a motion to
Yeah,
reconsider.
I did. So that was Liz and I. I'm not gonna make it.
I make a motion to, what, reconsider our vote
Uh-huh. For option 2. I
for
think.
option
Yeah.
2?
Yeah. And then we'll vote on it.
And then we want it to pass.
We'll vote on whether we're gonna reconsider it,
Yes.
right?
So,
Uh-huh.
so
Go ahead.
question for clarification.
Yes,
Then do we have to, because why shouldn't we drag this out longer?
yeah.
Um,
You know, Caitlin, we're always wrestling with that, and I'm just trying to do the best I can, okay? Thank you. Go ahead, Pete.
so do we have to reconsider then both?
No, we
I
just
don't know.
undo that vote and leave it.
Which vote are we undoing?
Well, so Liz just made a motion to reconsider the vote for option 2.
So.
Because
then
that
if
was a
this-
positive vote, so we had to take it back in order to table it.
If this passes, we'll just go back to the fact where a motion could be made to, on anything that we want, including to postpone consideration until a later date.
Although what we could do is keep the affirmative vote on option 2, have Carol do her work, and then when the feelings of the community have been heard, then we could rescind it or
Yeah.
then.
And we could
The
also,
motion to reconsider has to be made the same day.
okay.
That's not the case as it was with the little speaker out
The
there.
ski jumper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do have a motion on the floor, and the motion is to reconsider the vote we took on option 2. Are you ready for that motion?
Sure.
Please.
Okay. So all those in favor of reconsidering our vote for option 2, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Hey, that passes 5-0. I can do those things. All right. So we are going to reconsider that. And now what?
Well,
Dr. Wright.
instead of having the vote, why don't I make a motion to table this?
Okay.
To a future meeting.
And then
I tabled any future motion to a future meeting.
You're tabling
I'm tabling a motion for
this discussion.
this discussion and this gazebo choice to another meeting to be identified later.
and that will bring all options back into play.
We've tabled stuff like that before. Maybe we'll have our town attorney take a little look-see at it as well. Okay. Any discussion on that? Tabling to some unknown time in the future? Okay, seeing none. Liz made a motion to table this discussion to a future meeting. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye, that passes 5-0. And Carol, will you do a little bit of outreach just to see if we can get a little more clarity so we can land it next time?
Of course. I just want to send those emails like that, right?
All right, cool. That was interesting. It is now 7:40. I think we're just going to proceed. So our next item of business is about a proposed police substation at the transportation center. And John, who is presenting this item?
I will do it.
Town
Daniel.
Manager John Potter is presenting this item.
And so now that we've tackled the difficult facility issue for the night, we'll try to take on the easier one here,
Yeah.
hopefully. So I'll be speaking from a memo in the board's packet, starting on page 56. And I may refer to several conceptual plan drawings, alternatives that were included as attachments in this memo, and there may be some copies up there. They're definitely online. So the board discussed the downtown safety action plan several times in August and September. And I believe out of those conversations, the idea emerged of the possibility of situating a police substation at the Brattleboro Transportation Center on Flat Street. And so staff did some work on that and came back to you in October, I think October 15th, and presented a plan for constructing a police substation in the transportation center. And we had feedback from the board and the public at that meeting on October 15th. And we took that back to the architect that's been helping us conceptualize plans for this idea. And now have before you three options along the lines of what you discussed in October. The first option, option one, which is the drawing distinguished by a big yellow area for a community meeting space towards the front of the transportation center. This is Flat Street at the bottom of the plan. That one has the community meeting space situated in the front of the building on Flat Street. Patrick's pulling this up on the screen. This is.
You zoom in a little bit on that.
Yes. This is the an option that you saw on October 15th. We're bringing it back just to use to compare against the other two alternatives here. This project would include a police substation with parking enforcement, 4 24-hour public bathrooms, and a community meeting space on Flat Street. The estimated cost for this would be approximately $1.2 million to do that project based on a $275 per square foot renovation cost. That's what our architect is suggesting, that any renovation in this space would be about $275 per foot. The second option before you tonight is one that you discussed in October, and that was what if the community meeting space got moved around to the alley side, so the alley coming off of Flat Street, and leaving this space where the community meeting space was situated in the first plan empty and available for retail rental of some sort. So in other words, trying to preserve more of the past uses that have happened at the transportation center in terms of retail space being leased out. This option two would be a slight savings on option one, but the square footage is approximately the same. It's very close. It comes in at 1.1 million to do that project, with all of the elements that were described for option one. The third option, if Patrick would bring that up, that is the one that has no community meeting space included in the project. This was, again, one of the suggestions that came up at your October 15th meeting when you last discussed this. And this final option, as you can see on the screen, it eliminates the idea of the community meeting space and only includes the police substation with parking enforcement and the 4 24-hour public bathrooms. The estimated cost per square foot is still $275, but the total square footage is reduced by about 1,300 to 1,600 square feet. So the total project estimated cost for option three would be $707,000. Again, as we discussed in October, the staff is proposing use of the revolving loan fund to fund this project so that it is not an additional burden on the property tax. There is a cash balance, as indicated in the memo, in the revolving loan fund of just over 2.5 million. There are around $600,000 of that has been committed by the board to various programs or projects. So there's an available balance currently of 1.9 million in that account. If you want to hold out approximately $475,000, as you've discussed at previous meetings around the solid waste program for the potential of funding bins or carts for that program, that would set aside an additional $475,000, leaving 1.4 million available for this project, which would cover any one of the three options. But if you were to do option 3, the lowest cost option before you, that would leave around 680,000 in the revolving loan fund, which is still considerably higher than the 200,000 or 300,000 that you've maintained in that over the long term. But it would allow for an additional, 680,000 that could be available for other projects or capital projects or what have you. So you have a recommended motion on this, and we have various staff here tonight to answer any questions that you might have about this. And that's what I have for you on this project.
Great. Thanks, John. Board, anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Motion to direct the town manager to proceed with the substation and public bathrooms as presented in option 3 at the Brattleboro Transportation Center, using the funds from the town's revolving loan fund with a not to exceed $707,000, $707.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
707,444. Yeah. Great.
You just have to put that number in once, not 6 times. That's okay.
Yeah. No, you're good. You're good. Do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, I'm in favor of the reduction. The more and more I hear, the more feedback that I get with regards to this and the progress that is being made in our perception of having our downtown safe is starting to turn into a safer place. So yeah, I'm in favor of this motion.
Okay, great. Thank you. Discussion on this item. Elizabeth?
Thank you, Daniel. I'm just not clear what this space to the right of the colored areas is. Is this the main vacant?
So Liz, you're pointing to option 3, and if we can pull that back up, Patrick, I think you are referring to the space to the east of the substation, which is primarily an area that is currently leased to the mover, and they are using that space for storage and other place for their drivers to rest or check in, use a computer, that kind of thing. The proposal would remain, and we would continue to lease that to SBT. The 4 public bathrooms and a maintenance area are also included over on that side. And maybe Patrick can point this all out, but the area that I was talking about that the mover uses, Patrick, if you can kind of show that.
Right in here. Show bathrooms. Maintenance. Right in there. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
And so we are leasing this to the mover, and that implies that they're paying us.
Yeah, they are a small amount, and we do need to renew that at some point if you're interested in doing that.
Great, thank you. Other questions from the board? Elizabeth?
I just-
Doubling the.
I just want to say that I'm wholly in favor of this project, and the reduction in size and scope is also welcome.
Okay, thank you. Other board members? Franz?
Thank you, Daniel. Yes, I also favor this proposal. I'm pleased that the town staff, the town manager, and Chief Hardy, and I'm sure others working on this, were able to bring it in at a considerably lower price than we looked at previously for the bigger proposal. And I think the reduction in scope is appropriate. It maintains the important functionality that we're looking for in this police substation, and provides, I think, adequate facilities for the Brat Force downtown and other police-related activities downtown. So I really think this is certainly from a budgetary standpoint an improvement on the previous proposal, and I'm pleased to vote in favor of it.
Okay, thank you. Richie?
Is there any realistic projection of when, if we approve, say, number 3, when it would be in place?
No, not really. We haven't developed a schedule yet for that, but we would get to work on it immediately and try to fit it into the project plan as soon as we could.
So you just start. Right?
Great, thank you.
Wait,
Yeah, you have more?
well, what about the complexity of the mitigation with the water in the building?
So for example, that's one of the things that needs to be completed before we could start in on this work. So that's in process, and that project, once that project's completed, we could start in on something like
That's
this.
been going on for a while.
A little while, but the projection was that would be completed in December. I think we're still on track with that.
Okay, thank you. So when this project was proposed initially, I was pretty excited about a community room. And, you know, I spoke with folks in the community about that. I spoke at the one Brattleboro meeting that we had about that. And, you know, I haven't heard a lot of kind of plans or thoughts on how we'll use that space productively. And I think within the context of what is a really challenging budget, you know, saving some money on this project, that those savings could potentially then, you know, be used to reduce our capital expenditure in the general fund, which reduces the amount of property taxes that we need to raise. It frees up that as an option. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but, you know, so I think that I can swallow the loss of the community room. I think if I was hearing from community members and community organizations that they had high hopes for this community room and great plans, then great, you know, but that's not what I'm hearing. And that's okay. You know, we have other spaces that we can leverage, and I think we can work together to meet those needs. I'm really excited about having 4 24-hour, well-maintained public bathrooms in this town. I've been trying to get public bathrooms in this town for the last several years. We got pretty close last winter, but failed. And so I will be excited for us to have public restrooms in this town for all of the people in the town that need restrooms. And that's whole cross-section of our community. So that would be good. I think that I've heard from many members of the public that they do want to have a place for our police department to work out of downtown. They have said to me, you know, they want to see more police downtown. And that is something that police department has operationally kind of made a little shift on in the last several months. And I've heard a lot of positive feedback about. I think that the Brat project needs a home. This is that home. That project is intended to be a downtown project. So this is, you know, a good place for it. The building, as it currently stands, is no use. You know, the building is sitting there empty. It is serving no purpose. And so this is us making a better use of that space. And I think that will be a good thing. And so I'll be happy to proceed with this project. I think, you know, there is benefit to a whole swathe of the community in it. And so that's where I'm at. And so at that point, I think we'll open it up to the public for questions and comments. And I'm going to go in this order. All right, so let's go. Dick, Caitlin, person behind Caitlin, whose name I don't know, David, and then I'll come back because I can't remember more than 4 things. And then I'll remember that people are also on Zoom.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I got it.
I'm worried.
Okay.
But there you
Okay.
go.
And you get up to 3 minutes and we're going to listen to each other and be respectful.
It looks like you added the locker room space that David was talking about in the schematic. Is that for lockers?
I don't believe so. John,
Yeah, there is a storage space for the Brat team in this. There is not a public storage space, as was discussed at the last time. That was not
So-
something we.
Thanks for the clarification.
You're probably not going to do this, but I would strongly have you consider moving the parking offices up to the municipal center. I think this is where they belong. They fall under the auspices of the finance department. Carol Cologne could be up here. And then the two parking attendants could actually visit down there if they needed a place to rest. But I don't think that they belong there. This is much easier accessibility for them. It would be taking out a significant cost. But I do believe that. I am a little bit confused. I see lobby here. Is that public lobby? And then those two bathrooms in the yellow, does that go along? Is that just for the Brat team and anybody that's in there? That's specific to them? That those.
If you want to
bathrooms
ask all
in
your
there-
questions and then I'll, yeah.
But I would have a follow-up if you just said yes or no.
Well, I don't know the answer yet. John, what is it?
So I would address a number of things
Yeah.
that Dick brought up. I'm happy to answer all of them.
I'll give you a follow-up if you want to give me the
Okay.
rest of the questions.
Okay. If they are specific there, everybody in this building uses a public bathroom, employees, people that come in here. Same thing at the rec department, same thing at the library. And so I'm wondering why this area here, because it's a significant cost for the plumbing, why we wouldn't be just using the bathrooms that are already existing, probably after retrofit of some sturdier materials in there. And these people shouldn't have a separate bathroom all to themselves, or are the 4 bathrooms for all the public? And this lobby area here is for the public. And I'll wait for your answer and then.
Yep, great, thank you. John?
Yeah, so a couple things. I think you're referring to the yellow area. It's the lobby. Those will also be publicly accessible restrooms during business hours. However, for facility security, they would be closed off. The idea with the 4 on the side was they're open all the time. And as you know, and you referenced, we have like something like 25 public restrooms in the downtown area right now, but we have very few that are open all the time. And that's what these 4 would be. That's the program element that is on the focus on that. I would just say on the comment regarding the parking staff that I believe that the police department is seeing the parking staff as an integral partner in the Brat team efforts, and they are a big part of the eyes and ears down around downtown, and having them integrated with the Brat team is seen as a positive benefit of this as well. And that's why they're still being thought about as being part of this space.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Yep.
Yeah.
So does the parking enforcement have like walkie-talkies that they communicate with the Brat team? Is that what?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I said Caitlin was next.
Oh, I saw it. Can go later. Can I go? No, it's okay.
I'm here. I just heard you make a gross misrepresentation of some of the feedback you've got. You're saying, Daniel, you said that you got feedback from the community about how people want this in town. I know for a fact that you have received feedback from the community and from the social services organizations that you're mentioning that is not saying that people don't need a community space. They're saying that it's going to be difficult to have a community space and the only public bathrooms available in town be consumed into the police substation. It's just anyone you have gotten feedback from many people who have said that. So it's just a public misrepresentation to say that you haven't. People are not saying that the town budget shouldn't be spent on a community room. We deeply need a space where people can go inside in the winter, can come together to build solutions together. We deeply need bathrooms. The idea of them of people who are already being policed during every second of their lives and have no access to real safety or real privacy, to have to go into the police station to use the bathroom or to go to the community space is fundamentally wrong. I've also heard, since I came into the room, two of you, both John and Elizabeth, talk about how much you'd like to see the community come together to create solutions for and with each other for various problems. One, I think, was the fire. One was this gazebo thing. You've also said a number of times that you needed to take more time to hear feedback from the community for a gazebo. I invite you to sit with that because you've been asked by many different people, not just me, so many different kinds of people who don't agree on anything else, asking you to take more time before you spend close to $1 million of town money on a police substation. You have to take more time with it. You passed the ordinance, a petition went out, you now have to go rethink about the ordinance. And speaking of fire, if you have this much money to spend, the fire department is out on Facebook begging for more money because there are more fires every year in this town. We are now in a drought. The fire department needs money. The fire department needs members. They have people on. I'm talking about the topic of town budget being spent on cops. Instead of social services, you've granted $800,000 to all of the social services in town. I don't know what the fire department budget is, but these are two. You're talking about the issues in town. All of the issues in town can be well treated by robust, actual social services, real sober housing, rehabilitation options, can be solved by community coming together to build solutions the way that, Daniel, you've come to see us do at the co-op. You're saying for the past few months, things have gotten better because of cops. The past few months, things have also gotten better because the community has been coming together to do mutual aid distros and be on the street together and create a real sense of community. I spend all day, every day talking to people on the street who have tons of ideas to offer you, but once again, none of you ever come talk to them. So fundamentally recommend that. But social services, fire department and EMT, those are places that are lacking funds, who need funds. And if you gave them funds and let them do their thing, would solve a lot of the issues that you're trying to solve by giving $1 million to cops, which has been tried all over the country, does not work.
Thanks, Kim.
Do it better and differently.
Thank you. The person sitting behind Caitlin, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Well, my name is Artemis, and I am here to speak against the police substation in general. I consider it to be an extreme expense, and I do not consider it to be useful use of town funds. I have been harassed on the street for years and years, and multiple times the police have just stood there and watched as I'm chased around by drunks. I do not think increasing their numbers downtown will achieve anything besides just wasting money. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see if I can remember. David, thank you. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, David Lovemock, District 9. I don't know how many members of the select board have thought about the opportunity cost of tapping the revolving loan fund, which is being looked at as a source for a number of things, almost as if the revolving loan fund is spare change behind the cushions of the couch. In the list of projects formerly known as ARPA money, there was an allocation of $290,000 for bike walk projects for matching money for projects that might emerge. And there was also $30,000 for pickleball courts. I believe both of those projects you've committed money to, but you haven't expended money. As much as I'd like to see, improvements in bike walk and is,
I'm going to let you go on a little bit long, but let's try and get more germane.
yes, I'm going to, as indifferent as I might be to pickleball courts, neither of those are emergencies, but you did declare public safety an emergency, which is why this project comes forward. And I'd note that if you included the 290 plus 30, you would actually have $350,000. That's 45% of option 3. And so I would seriously suggest you consider using that money rather than tapping revolving loan fund. Okay. Which also, by the way, includes UDAG monies now that have been swept into revolving loan fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sprite, and then we're going to go to Zoom for a little bit.
Rick Sprite, District 9. I'm glad to hear that the water intrusion issues are being dealt with expediently, finally. I'm hoping that the concerns about structural degradation because of water on the posts that hold the whole thing up is part of that or is on the agenda. I would be curious what the answer to that was, but also I was wondering what the effect of having commercial space available. It seems like a really good idea to maintain the commercial space on the street side. And towards that end, if in this budget includes dealing with the moisture and weatherization issues that were never included in the original theoretically.
More germaneness.
This is absolutely germane. The downstairs spaces that we're talking about renovating, I want clarity whether these budgets include making those spaces actually rentable.
Thank you.
Because they haven't been. I mean, the people who were in there before renting them were suffering through spaces that really weren't built for the purpose that they were being used.
Okay.
So I guess my main question is, are those commercial spaces going to be viable going forward? Is that in the budget?
Okay, thank you. Do you want to speak to that real quick?
Can quickly, the membrane project, which is I was talking about earlier, will waterproof the whole the spaces that are not part of the substation proposal, as you know, as those as well as the substation. So the whole downstairs, that whole first floor, will be covered by the membrane project.
I understand that has to do with water intrusion. I'm talking about moisture and weatherization, which is a whole different subject. There's moisture coming from the ground. There's condensation happening on the ceiling because it's not weatherized properly. It never was even touched in that regard. And that's what I'm asking about.
Right. And we've had conversations about that on other days, and maybe this is something that needs to be heard on another day. Patrick, maybe you...
Is it part of the budget or not? That's the question.
Okay,
it's
so
yes or no
that's
question.
a fair question. And so I don't have the answer to that question right now.
Maybe Patrick knows, because I've spent a lot of time talking with him about it.
Patrick may or may not know, but I don't know that Patrick has an answer that would satisfy you.
Yeah. So we might need to come back to you on that.
Okay, so I guess the answer is no. Ben.
The answer is we don't know right now.
I don't understand what Frick is asking specifically. He knows something.
Wait. One voice at a time. It's really hard to hear when people are talking over each other. Okay. Caitlin, would you mind? Caitlin, thank you. So Frick's question is reasonable. Nothing wrong with it. I just don't know if we have an answer for it right now.
Well,
it's the first I've heard that this is
or it's not part of the proposal.
Yeah.
So why don't you let us sit with that question for a little bit? We'll hear from some more people and we'll see if we can come back to you. Okay. Do you have a comment that you'd like to make on that? Patrick
Again, I
Mullen,
don't know if it
Assistant
would
Town
be
Manager.
fundamentally satisfactory, but
Oh, go ahead.
I believe John's correct that the membrane is in full swing and moving forward. I know there were some other remediations that were planned and paid for through the special projects. I believe some of that has to do with addressing water infiltration issues. And I know that the board passed a substantially more robust capital program that included a range of new maintenance features at that facility. Our belief at this time is that if we move forward with those and move forward with this plan, that we should be all right. But it's been a long time with water issues at that location. And, you know, have we got them licked with this latest round? We'll find out.
Okay.
Okay.
Again, that
Thank
does
you.
not even come close to addressing
Okay.
my question. My question is,
Frick.
the place is a basement. It's a basement. It is not insulated. One of the sources of moisture is condensation, which is not addressed with the membrane or any of the things that are preventing water infiltration from precipitation. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm glad that's being dealt with. It sounds like it's relatively under control. I'm talking about making the space able to be conditioned in a way that it's not a basement, if there's not intrusion of moisture from the ground, that there's not condensation because of activities inside that's happening on a cold ceiling, which is where a lot of the water was coming from. So is it going to get spray foamed or something like that? Is that in the budget, or is there some other, I don't know what other reasonable option there was, but
I hear your
is
question.
that in the option?
I hear your question,
Okay.
and we'll take that into consideration. I'm going to move on and hear from some other people.
So I'm assuming your answer then is that it's not in this budget.
Yeah, I think you're assuming too much about what I know about this budget, actually.
Well,
So
maybe John
I'm
can
hearing your
answer it.
question.
Yeah.
Frick.
Okay.
I'm going to move on to somebody else.
Okay.
Thank you.
Consider my question not answered then.
Okay, fair. Yes, Patrick.
I would just say that the question of whether or not it's in the budget is a little difficult to answer. We've worked with, excuse me, two construction managers who have specific knowledge of that facility and have worked in it in recent years, and each has come to us and said, on the time frame that we've been sort of accelerating this project forward, right? This has come forward relatively quickly. Each has said a reasonable estimate for construction in this facility, given this specific location and its construction method, is $275 a square foot. That's a good average, they've each said. So that's the plan. And you know, what's included in that?
Okay. Thank you. We'll weigh that in consideration, I'm sure.
Yes.
Let's move on to Abby on Zoom and then the next person on Zoom. Oh, maybe not. I said Abby first because Zoom recognizes who was first. Hi, Abby.
Hi, thanks. Abby Manukin, District 8. I want to voice my strong opposition to housing a police substation downtown. The list of reasons are so many, but I want to highlight how, as Caitlin pointed out earlier, the conversation about the gazebo, which is also in my neighborhood near Maple Street, I think surprised anyone with the length of that conversation about a gazebo, and particularly how so many of you felt ill-equipped to vote on that because you didn't feel like you had enough community input, or that the community input that you did have wasn't being reflected in the plans that you were choosing to move forward with. And that feels like such a, this issue is compounding that so tremendously, and yet there is no talk of that from the board. I know for a fact that every single member of the select board and John Potter received dozens of emails about this very issue and how people in the community were opposed to it. And none of you have mentioned that in your opening remarks. You just talked about the community members who were in support of it. That is a form of erasure and silencing that I think is emblematic of the political landscape more broadly, both in this town, at the state level, nationally, and globally. And I think it's really, really upsetting. And I would ask each of you to really think about how you're representing or not the community input that you are receiving, and whether or not you're giving it the due time that it deserves. This is, more than 10 times the cost of the gazebo. It's like, I can't. It's so much more, and yet the urgency with which you're moving ahead with wanting to vote on this and get it going without the community input that it deserves, and without really integrating it and acknowledging it, that there is a lot of opposition. And just listening to the voices that you're choosing to listen to is really, really upsetting. I totally agree with Caitlin about the mutual aid efforts that have been happening and how much that has been addressing community safety. And I do not believe that spending this amount of town money or increasing police presence when the need is for services will do our town good. I think it will be expensive and it will cause harm. And I hope you will not vote on this, just as you can delay. We have seen you delay votes, and I would ask that you do that tonight.
Thanks, Abby. Next up, Doran. Folks, if we can just refrain from talking over one another so that we can hear. Yeah, and if we could just have an atmosphere of calm and community, that would be lovely.
It would be.
Thanks, guys. All right. So, Doran, let's hear from Doran. Let's hear what Doran has to say.
It won't let me out. Sorry.
We can hear you. I think it's a little quiet.
Oh, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yeah, it's quiet.
Oh, sorry. I'll try to speak up as loud as I can. My name is Doran Ham, District 9. I live on Main Street. I work at the New England Youth Theater on Flat Street. I spend the vast majority of my life on Flat Street. And I will just say that I don't think we need a police station on Flat Street, especially since even the threat of this ordinance going in, things have changed a lot. And I even heard members of the board say that. I will say I want to commend you all for pushing forward with public bathrooms. Thank you so much for putting so much thought and effort into that. But I walk Flat Street every day, and even now there's just a cop car parked there and there are cameras parked there. Things have already been drastically better there. And so I want to just suggest a total re-envision of that space. We listened to Turning Point talk about how they would have loved that space. Anyone talk about having incredible partners between town and private nonprofits? Like, that just seems like what a perfect combination, because they're the ones doing the work on the streets, doing 20 meetings a week with people that are struggling. Also having a heating center downtown, because once again, I walk to my car every night. I will always see people sleeping on the streets, even in the winter, even because the beds are full, right? So I just want you to totally think about what can be absolutely re-envisioned and not spend money on something that I just don't think will be used. And that's coming from someone that just sees it literally every day. So please just take folks like myself who live downtown in consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Doran. Going to take Twice Upon a Time. We'll do a couple more.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you fine. If you could just
Okay.
so.
Hi, well, I'm Nicole from Twice Upon a Time, as you said, and I am in so much support of this substation being downtown. I think that the police presence downtown has made a real difference, and I don't think they can stay downtown without having someplace to go to the bathroom, someplace to change their clothes, someplace to go, and I think we need them downtown. And I don't know how many people I speak for, but 400 or 500 that have come to me saying that they didn't feel safe downtown and they have seen an improvement. So I know I feel safer, and I can only speak for myself and the people around me that I see and talk to every day at my shop. But I think we need them to be there. And I think this is a good investment in the short term. I do think that this town could be spending more money on social services, and we could be doing more with lockers and cooling stations and heating stations. But they take longer to do. I want to do those things too, but in the short term, we really need them to be downtown, at least for me. So for what it's worth, I really need them, and I feel safer with them. And I think that the chief and her brat team are doing an amazing job so far. And I think our whole community is doing an amazing job so far. And I hope we can continue to work together, because I think it's going to take all of it. So thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. I'm going to go to Kate, and then I'm going to come back to the room.
Hi, I'm Kate from downtown Brattleboro, and I wanted to speak in support of the proposal. First, I just want to thank you for the expediting the concern that you've been hearing from the community in downtown. And the bathroom facilities are definitely a big plus. Thank you for that. When we think about community safety means everyone, I think we need to recognize that everyone includes a wide swath of people. We have children downtown. We talk about children on Flat Street, and Flat Street being a youth corridor. And so, yes, the police presence down there with the cop car has already made a difference, and that's important to recognize. We also have visitors to our downtown. We have residents in our downtown, and we have people who live and work downtown. And so everybody has a different level of comfort and safety when they think about being in our streets, and whether that's in the daytime or in the evening. And so I just think that it's really important that when we recognize this public health and safety issue, that we have to think about all of the perspectives, hold multiple truths at once, that, you know, some people might feel perfectly safe downtown, but there are other people who actually really don't. And both of those points are valid. I also sit on the One Brattleboro community group, and overwhelmingly what I hear in those meetings, where there are representatives from social service agencies, when there are folks from the Brattleboro town offices, is how much we need every single player around that table to come forward towards community action and having a collective impact. And so the police are one piece of that puzzle. And I think that's a really important thing to recognize. They do hold a piece of solving this problem and a part of the solution. And all of us actually hold that role, right? We're all responsible for creating a health and safety downtown and community for everyone. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thanks, Kate. Let's come back to the room. I'm afraid I don't know your name, but in the front with the hat. Yeah, would you mind coming to the microphone so people on the TV can hear you? Just introduce yourself.
My name's Ray. I live in District 9, I believe. I think I have like a few woven points to bring in that feel in opposition to this proposal. Kind of wanted to start like going back in time a little bit, where like we haven't actually ever really implemented any of the community safety review recommendations that were put forward, paid for by this town in 2020. And I'd like to just remind the room that that's not actually something that's been meaningfully tried. And so it feels vastly irresponsible to put this much money towards things that were never actually included in that review. I also would like to bring up that we have now filed one petition legally within the town to overturn the ordinance, which will be voted on December 12th by the RTM, because actually over 400 people signed against the ordinance. That was like a huge landmark movement of like a lot of people within this town that don't agree with the way the select board is handling safety in this town. I'd also like to bring up that before that meeting where you approved the ordinance, we had, I think, almost 300 signatures in like 7 days asking, as visitors, as residents, as also a lot of social service organizations. There were, I believe, 20 different people associated with nonprofits, social services, groundworks. I should have brought a list, but I didn't have time today to bring a list to be like checking off the things that you take me more seriously. But all of those things were done. That work was done by people in your community that you're supposed to be representing. And if we can't figure out how to represent ourselves, then where do we get represented? How do we get our voices actually heard and not homogenized as like one little opposition, as opposed to like maybe 8 business owners downtown that seem to have all of the power and sway in what decisions get made and don't get made? It feels completely ridiculous. But a lot of people have been talking and organizing and voting against the decisions you've been making, and they're going to continue to do that. And you still have done nothing meaningful to actually shift safety in the ways that were outlined in a funded report with town money. Kind of a laugh in the face at something that was supposed to be, I don't know, respected and like cared about, and feels vastly unjust to ignore it in the face of that right now. Especially when like 2 months ago, you even made comments to the effect of being like, well, we've tried everything. And it's like, actually, I'd love to see a list of all the things you've tried, how much they cost, what the impacts were based on like, you know, peer reviews or social service organizations reviews, or, you know, there's just so many ways to actually generate data and like try things and experience like what comes from them. And there's absolutely no way that I think the Brat team is going to have the effect that you're going for. I don't think a substation is going to have the effect you're going for. I think it's also vastly irresponsible to vote on something where you don't even have an itemized budget. Like, we don't even know. I thought that actually those were great points that I don't remember your name, but you brought up earlier. It's like, it's a safety issue actually to not have a really clear plan in place for remediating an incredibly moldy, decrepit building. That is a huge amount of money to waste on infrastructure when you don't actually see the list of what's going to happen.
Thanks, Ray. I appreciate that. I just want to respond to the last thing that you said. I think it's worth pointing out that what Patrick said is two, I don't know what their titles would be, construction managers or engineers who have knowledge of the building, gave quotes that were indicative of, you know, rehabbing the space based on their knowledge of the space. So presumably that includes understanding of the condition.
I'm a carpenter, and you should actually be able to say how you're doing it.
I'm going to go to the next person that had the hand up, which I think was Christina.
Hi, I'm still Christina. I live in District 8. I'm on RTM, and I really don't like public speaking, but I just wanted to, I've been looking at last year's RTM Finance Committee report, and I just wanted to point out that you guys were urged to delay consideration of any other further grants from the revolving loan fund, and were urged to take in more engagement, do more engagement, blah, 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 more transparency, accessibility, all of these things, and community input. And when you each went around saying how you felt about this proposal, especially when you were talking about community input, it was very one-sided. It made me think that we live in a town where I guess everybody here who's speaking against this police substation doesn't exist, because your summary of what you are hearing from the town left out probably about half of the people, because about half of us, I understand that some people feel more safe when there's people with guns and bulletproof vests around. Probably about half of us don't. I don't feel like my children are more safe because there's someone with a gun nearby. um, uh, I also come to you tonight from the future. I moved here 5 years ago from a big city. This is not unique to Brattleboro. And I can tell you what the future looks like when you keep adding more police to a housing issue. Yes. And that looks like rich people complaining about stepping over piles of human poop as they leave their $3,000 studio apartments in the morning. And it looks like police departments having to maybe take on trash pickup because the bulk of their duties will be rolling up in a dumpster truck and just putting people's homes that they have built on the street into the dumpster. That's what the future looks like when you deal with a housing crisis with police. And as someone mentioned already, it's going to take all of these things. We definitely need people with guns and bulletproof vests as our police department. Sure. And we also need all these other things, right? And so far in the last 2 months, I have just watched you guys put all the resources into the one thing, the police department. You pass an ordinance, you hired more police officers, you made a BRAT team. Now you're doing a police substation. It's a lot of resources into one part of a community safety plan. And that is where I'll end it.
Thank you. Let's go. Okay.
Me?
Yeah, Lisa,
Yes.
right?
I'm Lisa Nash. I don't know what district I live in. I live in 210 at the north end of town. And I really appreciate what many previous speakers have said about safety and how safety is construed. I want to point out, since this august body is obviously quite concerned with procedure, that it's noticeable to me as an attentive observer that you freely give people who are more in tune with what the board likes to hear more time, whereas people who are presenting a tone and or facts that you are less comfortable with get cut down quickly. This could be documented. I'm sure I'm not the only person who observes that, but that is indeed a means of covert exercise of power. And it's, we notice. Okay, those of us who are younger particularly notice. And the construction of safety that is dominant from the select board and the town manager is not congruent with what I hear as a person on the street talking mainly to people who are 45 and under, most of whom grew up here. And I feel that that if indeed you actually have any care for the children and the grandchildren and the great grandchildren of this place, you must delay action here. Seriously, if you think there's not enough community agreement about a gazebo that you must delay, it is quite apparent that there is nowhere near enough community agreement. If you include, in fact, the whole community, okay? You may not like me as a person who lives in a tent and her onesie, yet I am still part of this community. And you have no authority whatsoever if you do not follow the leadings of our founding fathers in regard to this. Okay, they told us all governments eventually become tyrannical. One of the signs of that is when the community is construed as only a minority of the actual constituents. It's dangerous. It doesn't feel safe at all, because it's not safe at all. We human beings have enough experience looking at ourselves over time and in different places to know that when governing bodies do that, they take as their constituents only a tiny minority of the people and consider the rest of them to be a problem to be eliminated. Well, lo and behold, that's often what happens. Do you really feel that the children and grandchildren of this place do not deserve some more time for their elders to listen to their concerns and their feelings They're the ones who are going to inherit the consequences of these decisions that you are making today. I ask you again from my heart. There are many things that have not yet been tried with regard to community peacemaking and safety that have worked very well in many other communities. There's not an either or here. It's not police or community peacemaking. These things are meant as in nature to naturally complement one another, and that's not what's happening. Monoculture is not nature. Pouring all a community's resources into one area of life in terms of safety policing is a monoculture. It's anti-natural. It will fail. We know this. We have the results. Please take the time and listen again.
Thank you. All right.
Really short thing.
Yeah, the person behind you had their hand first.
Hi, my name's Juliet. I live in District 8 on Main Street. And I believe that regardless of people's views and feelings on this motion, I believe we need more time to decide. Yeah, just putting $1 million immediately into something that there's no consensus over just doesn't feel responsible to me. And yeah, I mean, that area in the transportation center, people hang out there because it's the only place you can really get out of rain in the town. And you know, winter's coming and people are gonna be just freezing outside. And I just figure, why not create a space that's already for like decades been used that way as a warming shelter. I don't think it feels safe for the police station to be in that zone as well. You know, many people here have like also lived outside and on the street, myself included. And, you know, it's not a place where people would really feel like cared for. And I know we're using language like, oh, the community coming together on this issue, but sadly, that's not what I'm seeing in this meeting. What I have been seeing that's had positive effects is, you know, we've been doing food distribution. Many community members have been coming by and, you know, donating sleeping bags and getting to know, you know, other parts of the community that they used to just push out and not relate with. And yeah, I just believe that we should be given more time to make this decision. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jocelyn, right?
Yeah. Hi, my name's Jocelyn. I think I just want to uplift the more time. I'm in opposition to this proposal. I'm an abolitionist. I don't want more cops, but what I really am up here to just add to is I knocked on hundreds and hundreds of doors in Brattleboro over the last month. When I got off work, as it was getting dark, I was knocking, and some people slammed the door in my face, but most folks ended up having these like incredibly robust conversations. As we were talking about the behavior ordinance that y'all pushed through pretty quick, and now there's this. And we did ask people how they felt about the satellite police station, because it was already like there was a buzz. And I know I only speak for myself, but I do want to just say my impression, speaking to hundreds and hundreds of people from all ilks of this community and all the neighborhoods. So much of it, and this is just like a weird mishmash of it, but it was like, well, at least they're doing something. And so for me, I just want to kind of uplift like the responsibility for the way that you have this conversation. And so much of what everyone has said is like, what have you tried? Try something different. Could we please have some data? Like you're hearing from people like, oh, all this money is going towards one aspect, enforcement, fear, you know, oh, let's make sure bad things don't happen. What about all the incredible things that could happen? And we do need town money to do that. We have done so much with so little in the last month. Like we are not getting paid and we are doing so much amazing work, connection, culture, just actual safety with each other. And there's an invitation for y'all to support that directly and to see what happens. So I would propose a straight up total reimagination. I can't remember who said that. Reimagination of that downtown space. We have enforcement. Y'all, that other night, there were 12 cops in like 30 seconds. We've got it. But something else. I just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. let's go to Zoom. And I think Casey?
Yeah, Casey's next.
Oh, what an angle. Hi, all. I am Casey Viato. I'm a voter in District 9, and I am a nonprofit employee here in town. I just want to start off by acknowledging I heard someone mention that the transportation center hasn't had anything good in it for quite some time. And I want to uplift the work that HCRS did during the groundworks pause to open the Pop Drop as a peer support center. And I believe that due to capacity and funding issues, that couldn't be continued. But there have been good things and good ideas tried in that space. And I do wish that we would believe in more of those initiatives. I think in this moment, maybe I'm sitting with sticker shock, or perhaps my math skills are not great. So please feel free, if you're better at math, to fact check me. But I know that recently there's been talk of raising property taxes to up to 20%. And I heard Daniel mention that the savings that we would potentially get on this substation wouldn't add an additional burden on those property taxes. And I'm happy to hear that. But my quick math tells me that the available balance after that waste startup still is showing us at the low end of option 3, spending 51% of the revolving loan fund on this potential substation. And I'm feeling really curious in this moment. You know, when we have select board members writing commentaries to the paper talking about the ordinance being a way to support and connect people with supportive services, and then a month later, the reformer is reporting that select board members are talking about slightly scaling back on the investment into social services. I'm sitting in a real place of confusion where I don't know how both of those things can be true. And I know that people feel uncomfortable and that it is no small thing to see people suffering and sit with people suffering. But I would beg you to reconsider, because unsafe is not the same as discomfort. And we've been seeing great things happening already with just a minimal amount of enforcement increase there and the maximum amount of community coming together. And as winter is coming, people are going to be going back inside. We'll be seeing less and less. So as many people have begged you to take more time, please take more time. Please talk with more folks about how we could use this money. I'm absolutely sure, a good idea to have some sort of substation there, but it doesn't need to just be for the police. It can be community safety for everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Casey. Patrick, let's go to Stacy, and then Abby's already spoken. I'll go to Malika after Stacy, and then I'll come back to Abby just in case it's somebody else using Abby's computer.
All right, Stacy, then Malika?
Yes, please.
Hi, can you guys hear me? I'm trying to start my video.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Awesome. If Casey lives in District 9, I also live in District 9 because Casey is my neighbor. A few things really quick. My name is Stacy. I went to high school here. I grew up here. I want to acknowledge very highly that everyone in this space, whether you are in favor or are not, you care about this community and you care about safety and you care about each other. And so very importantly, I want to highlight that people who are coming in opposition of this, at least for myself, we are not like inherently anti-police. We're not trying to make a us versus them situation. What we're really asking for is to take consideration. I've heard time and time again, but I feel like it's worth supporting that so many of our resources have gone to policing. And while I really respect Chief Hardy and the work that Chief Hardy does, I want to highlight the fact that there's so much good work happening in this community that needs support, that needs resources. As someone who did not leave Vermont and wants to start a family here and wants to put down roots here like my family got to, I worry that the more we spend on something that is fundamentally a housing issue means that housing is going to become more and more unattainable for people who want to start families here. So I just want to put this out here. Like, our community is beautiful. I love this space. I want to be in this space till I'm old and gray and maybe on the select board someday. But I just so want to say that with the way that we spend money and the way that we put stuff out there, like we need to think about how it's going to financially impact my landlord. We need to think about how it's going to financially impact the people who are trying to get housing here. We need to think about the fact that housing is not attainable right now, and that's one of the things we should focus on. But also, if we are going to do bathrooms downtown, I just want to highlight that people need to have safe showers as well. So if you do go forward with this, please consider making clean showers available for our community. And I hope you have a great night. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Stacy. I'm going to go to Malika, and then I'd like to come back to the board. Hi, Malika. We can't hear you just yet. You're muted, I think.
Okay, sorry about that.
It's okay.
I'm Malika. I live in District 7, and I want to ask a quick question before I make a comment, if I may, which is just if I saw on the floor plans for this proposal that there was a peer support office, and I was wondering if someone could give me just a little bit of context of what the plan is related to that. What's the proposal there?
Yeah, I can say something and then probably someone can add on more details. So I believe that's the office for Justin Johnson, who was recently hired by the police department as a peer support specialist. If anyone wants to add on to that. No. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay. That's good to know. I did just, I thought that might be the case. I looked at the article about his hiring and it doesn't indicate that he's in a peer support role. And you know, I manage peer support services at HCRS. I've been doing peer support for 12 years, and I'm pretty tapped into nationally, like what the standards are for peer support and the intense battle against co-optation of peer support that's happening. And overwhelmingly, people in the peer support field would not call that role, as I understand it, peer support, not call a role within a police department peer support. So local people doing peer support work, having done it for a long time, I think would take issue with that. But I also want to speak from the perspective of the pop-up drop-in center, which Casey mentioned. That was something that I initiated and led and was there for every day of. And the reason it didn't continue was that I completely put my whole job on hold, as did several of my teammates and also some community volunteers, to make that happen completely for free. So it's kind of like a free experiment the town got to have, a data point of what might be different, what is possible, what is safe to have in that location. And I was really moved and overwhelmed by that experience. The degree of mutual support and the situations that were de-escalated, we never had to call the police in that whole time. And there were, definitely some situations that I and others there, including just community members, de-escalated really successfully. And the feedback that we got from the people using the space, but also from neighbors, people who generally I otherwise hear expressing a lot of concern about the presence of poor folks, people using drugs, people just using public transportation. The feedback across the board was really overwhelmingly positive. And I'm also part of a group, I think, as you all know, that's working right now to try to get funding for a community center, in part inspired by that, and separate but connected, immediate 24/7 emotional and spiritual support center. So yeah, I think it doesn't make sense to me to expand and add another policing location when that money could go towards things that I think we have a really good indication could be effective and meet the needs of, really all the stakeholders here more effectively. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. So board, we've been here in public comment for about an hour now. I'd like to kind of bring it back and hear what the board thinks about that comment. Thank you to all who spoke. I think that was increasingly a really productive and calm and, community-based conversation. So thank you for that. Board, Peter made a motion way back when. It's a recommended motion to proceed with the police substation and public bathrooms as presented in option 3 at the transportation center using funds from the revolving loan fund not to exceed a cost of $707,444. Are you ready for consideration of that motion, or is there more discussion you need to have? France.
Well, I'd like to address one thing that I think we heard several times in the discussion, which is the number of voices speaking out against this proposal. And it's true. There are a lot of people speaking out against this proposal, and I've heard those voices. And there was mention made of emails to the board, which I have received and read and considered. And there are valid points on both sides of this discussion. I think I've considered pretty much all the different arguments that I've heard. And I agree with the perspective that this is not an either-or situation, that we need different approaches to really resolve the situations that have arisen. But the situations on the streets have been bad, and they've been damaging our town. They're not just neutral events that sort of blow away with the wind. And part of the way to address that is to initiate a process by which the community comes to an understanding of what's acceptable, what you can do, where you can do it, and that there's a conversation about all these different matters, and that there are steps that we take in situations where people just can't seem to adhere to acceptable standards. So it's complex. I think all of our efforts have been geared towards establishing this understanding and putting pieces in place that will enable things to improve, whether it's in terms of housing or food security or any number of aspects that are very, very important and we acknowledge are very important, but also in terms of having a presence on the street of eyes and ears and voices to ensure that these conversations happen in a good and constructive way. That's how I see our current efforts. And I think this police substation makes sense as part of that effort. Yes, it's expensive. I wish it didn't cost this much money. I wish we had the resources to do all the things that people have advocated. I absolutely loved the pop-up drop-in center that Malika was just talking about. It was a great place. It kind of bubbled up from the community, from the clientele there. And I would love to see more things like that happen too. But for right now, for tonight's discussion, I'm going to vote in favor of this police substation because I think it's one important piece of this very large process that we find ourselves in.
Okay, thank you. Other board members, Peter?
Yeah. So as I'm listening to everybody, there's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot of really strong feelings in opposition. And I know that we had people mention that there were dozens of community of us who were emailed by community. And as Franz said, I've read those. I've weighed them. Yes, housing is a problem. Housing is something I'm very interested in trying to provide to this community. I'm not going to lie, it's a Herculean task. It's big, but I'm happy to weigh in where I can weigh in. The fact that people think we've rushed to this decision couldn't be further from the truth. I alone have been listening to people for over 2 years with regards to this. received a letter in April of 2023 from Michelle Simpson, who was then the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club. The letter was entitled the Youth Corridor Coalition Letter, which was signed by 53 downtown businesses, not the 8 that were referenced here tonight, about getting this problem resolved. Do I wish there was another way that we could do this more expeditiously and that could satisfy everybody? Sure, but we can't. I alone have had 400 to 500 conversations on this issue tonight. So as the room clears out, because nobody wants to hear me talk, I'm okay with that. I will be, voting in favor of this, and but I'm still open to having conversations about bringing solutions that you all want us to work on. I'm not opposed to it. I'm in favor of it. But right now, this gets us to where we need to be.
Okay. Thank you. Richard, Liz, either of you want to see? Liz?
Thank you. Well, I appreciated what everyone had to say this evening. This action has been a select board priority for this year, but we've been talking about this project for 2 years. I ran for office hoping that this action would get done. And I don't think we should be making light of the crisis in our downtown, especially on Flat Street. And this initiative was brought forward from a child safety perspective, and that we have the Boys and Girls Club, and we have the New England Youth Theater, and we have what I like to call land use issues of that this project will address, and that this project will be a refuge with rippling effects on Frat Street and also in the community. We have data from the state and from our police department regarding call volume, and what's recognized in that call volume is that people are being victimized, and within the unhoused population, people are being victimized. And this is an opportunity for the BRAT team to cut that bad relationship and really allow people to seek services. So it's a means to protect all of Brattleboro. And there needs to be a space for the BRAT team. The BRAT team is, as we've discussed, unarmed.
Patrick. Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking right at it.
Thanks, Jackie.
So,
Go ahead.
So what is the municipal response? And I think this proposal is one of a series of efforts that the town has brought forward. We've received and are working with the state to have data about crime and call volume. We have the ordinance with the safety zones. We have this substation. We have the BRAT team, and we have one Brattleboro, and there's probably 5 or 6 others that I don't have at the tip of my finger. But this is a concerted effort to address a variety of issues, as Franz said, also trying to seek solutions to the needs of the unhoused. But this is something that will assist both the unhoused and all the people in our community.
Okay. Richard, do you want to speak?
I don't have the perspective that most of the other board members have time-wise dealing with this issue, but it's clear to me that, living in this community for such a long time, that this is something that has the select board, in my opinion, has allowed the community to have an open-ended input for quite a long time. not denying anybody the ability to express their opinion. We've had a lot of meetings. I think it's time to just do something.
Abby, I'm afraid I'm gonna move us along to a decision point, I think, at this point. So seems like my fellow board members are mostly pretty interested in this project. I really want to kind of let you know, like, that all of that comment there, people were heard. And, you know, sometimes people make comments that, like, you don't listen to us. And, like, I understand that, right? I've sat here long enough, and I've also sat there. And I know that, you know, that can feel like there's a gulf sometimes. I want people to know that they were heard tonight. I think people brought perspectives that were rich in experience and were eloquent and full of heart, and I really appreciate them. And, you know, the idea that, like, you know, there was a comment made about how much time people get, and, like, it's hard not to take it personally as literally the only person who's, you know, keeping track of how much time people get. And, like, I give everyone the same amount of time. You know, some people take less, some people take a little bit more. And usually when people take a little bit more, I let it go for a little bit until such a time as it needs to end. I'm not going to get distracted. So I can't, in good conscience, you know, just ignore what everyone's telling me tonight. I also want to kind of, like, name that, like, there's a, I don't know, like there's an interesting kind of thing that happens about controversial issues. You know, you'll have one group of people come and, like, instigate some kind of desire to talk about a controversial issue. So we had the largest ever group of people that I've seen in this room during the time I've been on the board, plus on Zoom, show up this summer and say, you need to do something about public safety, okay? And the board has taken a number of actions around public safety. The one that I feel most optimistic about, that, you know, in some ways is the boldest and least financially prudent thing we did this year, was to fund the Brat team, you know, in this current budget cycle with unbudgeted money. And then to say that we're also going to put that in the FY26 budget, which we're, you know, wrestling with right now. And I really want to give that program a chance at success. One of the things that program needs is a place for those people to work at. I believe right now we're kind of, like, making it work in the municipal center. Hodgepodge. And so, like, I guess a question I would have for town administration is, could the Brat team work out of the municipal center going forward? Would that be at all possible?
I mean, that would be possible. I don't think it would be optimal. I think as Liz was pointing out, the kind of the location that the transportation center is in is more where the need is, as opposed to up here at the north end of town.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, what I've always heard about how police staff do their work is that, you know, they're moving around, right? They're not static, really. They're not sitting in an office waiting for a call. They're out in the community responding to need. And so how much time will these staff members spend in the actual office space versus how much time they'll be out in the world? And I don't think that the municipal center is really that distant from our downtown core.
I mean, if you want to speak with the chief about police operations, probably be willing to come talk with the board to a limited extent, I would say. I mean, in terms of how we allocate our staff in the field, I mean, to me, that shouldn't really matter too much where you locate your operation. I think that this is a solid proposal that we could move forward with and address a specific need in a specific part of town quite effectively. If you don't like this approach, we can certainly come back with other options if that's what you're asking. Just let us know.
Mm-hmm. I think what I'm trying to respond to is the fact that like we have many, many, many members of our community saying, don't spend, the low end here is $707,000. Somebody mentioned opportunity costs and asked whether the board has considered it. Absolutely, the board has considered the opportunity cost of like spending this revolving loan for money on something other than what we've traditionally done, which is being for housing or economic development. These funds are, somebody mentioned UDAG, it's super weedsy and nerdy, but like basically this is money that a long time ago had all kinds of strings on it and has kind of gone through enough uses, I guess, or being washed clean, I'm just ignoring, that we can use it for any governmental kind of purposes, basically. So I'm really wrestling with the fact that like, somebody brought up the gazebo decision. Boy, I didn't expect that to go the way it went. So like, how can I sit here and hear everybody tell me, don't do this thing, and then just say, oh, we're going to do it anyway. I do think that when we're talking about like, it was actually interesting. Somebody said like, there's an invitation to partner with us, I think is how they phrased it. And I actually haven't had that invitation. I think that folks who are wanting to organize around community safety are totally within their rights to kind of organize that within their own selves. But I would also encourage them to consider partnering with town government because, somebody else mentioned that like we all care. We're all members of this community. We're all downtown. We're all experiencing pretty similar stuff, actually. I think we're on the same team, and so are there different ways that we could kind of envisage using a sum of money like this? I'll be frank with you. I'm concerned that the $500,000 that we send to human services does almost nothing. I work for one of those agencies. I can tell you that the 14 grand that our organization will receive is a total drop in the bucket, but we pretend as if it's solving something. And it really isn't, and so like, I would love our town meeting. And that's not to say that social services don't do good work. I'm saying that piecing out $500,000 to 38 organizations doesn't do good work. Piece it out to two, piece it out to a couple of projects. I'm getting away from germaneness as well, so I'll bring myself back. Thank you. So I'm feeling like, we've been asked to pause and reconsider whether this is the prudent use of money for this particular purpose. And I'm going to take that seriously. Yeah.
Okay. So with this project includes your much sought after.
I know it does. Yeah.
All right. And with that is where I can find myself approving that piece of this. Okay. I get it. We're in a room with a lot of intense opinions, and they come through strong, loud, and clear within the moment. I would say that over the 2 years that I've been working on this, that is almost daily in my day that we do something and we act affirmatively to fix our downtown and provide safety. I think relocating this thing kicks it down the road. I don't think it does exactly what we needed to do. That letter I referenced was specifically targeted towards Flat Street at that time and still stands to this day. So, it's again, not that I've heard you, not that I don't understand, like you might be a little emotionally wrapped up in the words that you've heard tonight. I am. It's hard to do that, but at some point you have to rise above the dozens and listen to the hundreds, possibly into the thousands of people in this community that we want to see what will happen.
Okay. Thanks, Peter. I'm going to keep it with the board for now, if you don't mind. I think we're ready to make a decision. Elizabeth?
I just wanted to mention, we delayed a long time for the new police station. And one of the reasons we needed a new police station was that the downstairs of this building it was moldy and gross. And we needed to have more respect for both the public and our police officers to have a better space. Right now, as John Potter said, we're kind of working ad hoc in this building. We need, as Peter said, we need to focus on the downtown. We need to focus on Flat Street. Chief Hardy has said, that this is a new initiative to have personnel in the downtown. I think it's necessary. We may have heard from several people this evening and we've gotten some emails, but I've heard from so many people in support of this project, and so many people have come to the earlier meetings this summer and with, a similar emotional gravity and asked for us to act. And this is, the solution that was brought to us by our staff and our police chief. And we need to put it into action and see if it'll solve the problem.
Thank you. Are we ready to make a vote? I'll reread the motion. So Peter made this motion to direct the town manager to proceed with the police substation and public bathrooms as presented in option 3 at the Brattleboro Transportation Center, using funds from the town's revolving loan fund with a not to exceed cost of $707,444. Any final comments, discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
That's 4 in favor. All those opposed, please raise your hand and say nay. Nay, that's 1 opposed, passes 4-1. And only other business is to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Francis made a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. That passes 5-0. We're adjourned. Thank you to our interpreters. I'm sorry that we didn't have a little break tonight. Thank you to BCTV. Thanks to everyone that showed up to this meeting. Thanks to folks that came to the open house, and thanks to town staff for working another really long day. All right. And we'll see you soon.